Hello guys, today we are going to discuss this topic like this, slowly, gently, as if we are opening an ancient door that has been closed for thousands of years. We are going to talk about the secret technology of the Anunnaki, the forgotten machines of the gods, the silent engines that once shaped our world, and the hidden knowledge that may still be sleeping beneath our feet. So take a deep breath, relax your mind, and allow yourself to drift into a story that stretches far beyond recorded history, back into a time when the sky was not empty and the earth was not alone. Long before the first kings ruled over cities, before the first temples rose from the dust, before even the first words were written, the Anunnaki were already here. They did not arrive with thunder and fire as later legends would describe. They arrived quietly, slipping into Earth's atmosphere like shimmering shadows, descending in vessels that glowed like stars. To the humans who would one day remember them, these beings became gods not because they demanded worship, but because their technology was so far beyond anything early humanity could comprehend. The ancient Sumerians spoke of the Anunnaki as those who came from the heavens to Earth. This was not poetry, this was memory. Hidden within the old clay tablets are descriptions of flying crafts, of glowing tools, of devices that could see into the future and machines that could shape matter itself. To a primitive civilization, these were miracles. To the Anunnaki, they were simply technology. Imagine the Earth as it was when they first arrived. Vast oceans, untamed continents, skies untouched by pollution, and a world rich in resources. Among those resources was gold, a metal far more valuable to the Anunnaki than to any ancient king. Gold was not merely decoration, it was a vital component in their advanced technology. It could conduct and stabilize energy, it could shield delicate systems from radiation, it could even be used to repair atmospheric damage on their distant home world, Nibiru. So they came to Earth not as conquerors, but as miners, engineers, and scientists. They built bases deep beneath the surface and towering structures on the land above. These structures, which we now call ziggurats, were not simply temples. They were launch platforms, energy stations, and communication towers. They were the interface between Earth and the heavens. Within these great complexes were machines that hummed with a soft, steady power. Machines that could move massive stones as if they were feathers. Machines that could carve mountains and redirect rivers. Machines that could take raw matter and reshape it at the atomic level. And among all of these devices, the most powerful of all was the technology they used to create humanity. The Sumerian texts tell us that humans were not born in the beginning, they were made. The Anunnaki, exhausted from the hard labor of mining Earth's gold, sought a new solution. They would create a being strong enough to work, intelligent enough to understand commands, and obedient enough to follow them. So, in what the texts call the place of molding, the first humans came into existence. This place of molding was not a simple workshop. It was a genetic laboratory filled with glowing instruments, liquid-filled chambers, and crystalline data devices. Here, the Anunnaki combined their own DNA with that of Earth's primitive hominids. They did not do this blindly. They used advanced scanners to read genetic code, editing and rewriting it as easily as a human edits words on a page. In this quiet, luminous chamber, life was shaped. Embryos grew inside artificial wombs, suspended in nutrient-rich fluids. Energy beams adjusted their developing cells, guiding their growth with perfect precision. What emerged from these chambers was something new. Not fully Anunnaki, not fully Earth creature, but something in between, the first humans. This was one of the greatest technological achievements in the history of the Anunnaki. They had created a new species. A species capable of understanding, learning, and evolving, but also a species designed to serve. The early humans were taught how to mine, how to build, and how to follow instructions. They were given tools that were themselves advanced technology, though to them they were simply gifts from the gods. The Anunnaki monitored them through crystal devices that could see across vast distances. These crystals, known in the tablets as the Me, contained not only knowledge, but the very rules of reality. They were databases of science, mathematics, genetics, and cosmic law. With these devices, the Anunnaki could control the development of civilization. They could decide when humans learned agriculture, when they built cities, and when they formed governments. Everything was guided quietly from behind the scenes. Above the earth, the Anunnaki maintained a network of orbiting stations and flying ships. These were not myths. They were described in the tablets as celestial boats, fiery chariots, and radiant wheels. These craft moved without wings and without sound. They could rise straight into the sky, hover in place, and vanish in flashes of light. These ships traveled between Earth and Nibiru, carrying gold, supplies, and information. They also transported Anunnaki leaders who ruled from orbit as much as they did from the surface. To humans, the sky became the realm of the gods because that was where their technology lived. Deep beneath the earth, enormous machines extracted gold and other minerals. These machines used heat, vibration, and energy fields to separate metal from rock. They left behind vast tunnels and caverns that still exist today, hidden far below our modern cities. Some of these places have been found by miners and explorers who have reported strange metallic walls, unnatural smooth surfaces, and traces of ancient radiation. The Anunnaki did not only use technology to control matter, they also used it to control time and consciousness. Certain devices could slow down or speed up biological processes. Others could record memories, store them, and even transfer them from one being to another. This is why the gods of ancient myth were said to live for thousands of years. They did not age as humans did because their technology allowed them to repair their bodies and extend their lives indefinitely. There were also machines that could influence the human mind, not to enslave but to guide. These devices could calm fear, inspire loyalty, and even plant ideas. Through them, the Anunnaki shaped the beliefs and cultures of early humanity. This is why so many ancient civilizations share similar myths of sky gods, creation stories, and divine rulers. But not all Anunnaki agreed on how this technology should be used. Among them were two powerful brothers, Enki and Enlil. Enlil believed humans should remain servants, controlled by the technology of the gods. Enki, however, saw something more. He saw potential. He believed that humans could one day become equals if they were allowed to grow and learn. This disagreement would eventually change everything. As humanity advanced, learning faster than the Anunnaki had expected, Enlil grew fearful. Humans were beginning to ask questions. They were starting to build on their own. They were discovering fragments of the old technology left behind by the gods, and Enlil believed that if this continued, humans would become too powerful. So a decision was made. The Anunnaki would reset the world. Using their advanced weather and tectonic control systems, they triggered a global flood. Ice melted, seas rose, and cities were swallowed by water. Most of humanity was wiped out, and with them, much of the ancient technology was destroyed or buried beneath the earth. Enki, however, secretly saved a small group of humans, guiding them to safety so that the human race would survive. And when the waters finally receded, a new chapter of history began. But the machines did not all disappear. Many of them were simply shut down, sealed, or hidden. Some were buried beneath the oceans. Others were entombed under deserts and mountains. A few were left in deep underground chambers, still waiting, still silent, still powerful. And even today, thousands of years later, there are whispers of strange discoveries, of ancient devices found in caves, of mysterious energy fields in remote places, of structures beneath the pyramids and ziggurats that do not match any known human technology. The secret technology of the Anunnaki may not be gone. Long after the floodwaters retreated and the mud of the ancient world settled into new lands, humanity slowly began to rebuild. Cities rose again, but they were never as advanced as the ones that had existed before the Great Reset. The Anunnaki had made sure of that. Much of their technology had been sealed away, buried deep beneath layers of stone, sand, and secrecy. What remained on the surface were only fragments, myths, broken devices, and memories written into clay. Yet beneath the earth, the old systems were still there. Hidden in vast underground chambers, the Anunnaki had left behind power cores that continued to pulse with faint energy. These were not simple batteries. They were self-sustaining reactors, drawing energy from the planet itself. Using geothermal heat, magnetic fields, and unknown forces, these machines could run for tens of thousands of years without maintenance. Their soft vibrations still ripple through the planet today, subtly affecting the Earth's electromagnetic field. This is one of the reasons certain places on Earth feel different. Ancient sacred sites, strange stone circles, mysterious mountains, and deep underground caverns often sit directly above these forgotten machines. People who visit these places report feelings of calm, visions, or an overwhelming sense of presence, as if something ancient is watching. They are not imagining it. They are standing above Anunnaki technology that has never truly shut down. Some of these sites later became holy places for human civilizations. Temples were built on top of them. Pyramids were aligned above them. Cathedrals and mosques were placed where the energy was strongest. Humanity did not know why these locations felt special, but they felt it and they honored it. Deep beneath Mesopotamia, where the first cities once thrived, lie some of the oldest Anunnaki installations. These were command centers, data vaults, and transportation hubs. When the Anunnaki withdrew from open contact with humanity, they sealed these places with advanced security systems. Not stone doors, but energy barriers. Not keys, but genetic locks. Only those with the correct DNA could enter. This is why ancient royal bloodlines were so important. The Anunnaki had subtly altered certain human families, embedding traces of their own genetic code within them. These descendants were meant to serve as caretakers of the old technology, guardians of knowledge, and intermediaries between gods and humans. Even today, some of the most powerful families in the world trace their lineage back to ancient kings, though few know the true reason why that lineage matters. The old machines also had another purpose. They were not only meant to mine gold or control weather, they were also designed to monitor humanity. Hidden sensors scattered across the planet could track population growth, emotional states, and technological development. The Anunnaki wanted to know when humans were ready to stand on their own and when they might become a threat. This network, often mistaken for spiritual energy or divine awareness, still functions today. It is ancient, subtle, and almost invisible, but it has never stopped watching. Some of the Anunnaki ships never left Earth. When the Great Withdrawal happened, a small number of craft were hidden in underground hangars and beneath the ocean floor. These vessels were designed to wait. Their systems were placed into deep hibernation, ready to reactivate when certain conditions were met. They are controlled not by simple switches, but by cosmic cycles, DNA signals, and planetary alignments. Nibiru, the distant home world of the Anunnaki, follows a long and complex orbit. When it draws closer to our solar system, certain frequencies and gravitational patterns change. These changes act as a wake-up call to the old machines on Earth. It is like a distant heartbeat echoing across space, telling the technology that the time of return may be approaching. Throughout history, sensitive individuals have picked up on these subtle signals. They become prophets, mystics, and visionaries. They see glowing beings, flying ships, and ancient cities in their dreams. They hear voices that speak of forgotten knowledge and coming change. They believe these experiences are spiritual, but in truth, they are interacting with Anunnaki communication systems that were designed to interface directly with the human mind. This is why so many ancient religions describe angels, messengers, and gods who speak through visions and dreams. These were not hallucinations, they were transmissions. The Anunnaki understood that direct rule over humanity would eventually fail. Humans would resist, they would rebel, so they created a more subtle form of control. They embedded their technology into the very fabric of human culture, psychology, and belief. They made themselves gods in the minds of humanity, ensuring loyalty long after their physical presence was gone. Even today, humanity looks to the sky for answers. When we pray, we look upward. When we dream of advanced beings, we imagine them descending from above. When we search for extraterrestrial life, we scan the heavens. This is not coincidence. It is a deeply planted memory left behind by the Anunnaki, reminding us of where our creators once lived. But not all of their technology was meant for control. Some of it was meant as a gift. Before they withdrew, the Anunnaki left behind libraries of knowledge encoded into crystals, stone tablets, and even human DNA. This knowledge includes advanced mathematics, astronomy, medicine, and physics. It is the reason ancient civilizations made sudden leaps in understanding, building complex structures, charting the stars, and developing sophisticated societies seemingly overnight. From Egypt to Sumer, from the Indus Valley to the Americas, the same symbols appear. Winged beings, serpent gods, sky ships, these are not just artistic themes. They are echoes of a shared global experience with the Anunnaki and their technology. Some of the most powerful devices left behind were known as dimensional gates. These machines could bend space, allowing instant travel between distant locations and possibly even between different realities. Legends of portals, doorways to other worlds and realms beyond this one all trace back to these devices. They were too dangerous to leave in human hands, so most were sealed or destroyed. But a few may still exist, hidden in places no one would ever think to look. As humanity moved into modern times, traces of the old technology began to surface again. Unexplained artifacts, sudden technological breakthroughs, strange signals from space. Some believe these are signs that the Anunnaki systems are slowly reactivating, preparing for a future event. Governments and secret organizations are said to have discovered parts of this ancient technology. Instead of revealing it to the world, they studied it in hidden facilities, trying to understand and replicate it. This is why modern technology has advanced so rapidly in the last century. Humanity is not inventing from scratch, we are rediscovering. And as we rediscover, we are unknowingly following a path laid out for us thousands of years ago by beings who saw much farther into the future than we ever could. But the greatest question remains. If the Anunnaki created us, guided us, and left their technology behind, what do they plan to do when they return? What do they plan to do when they return? That question has echoed through human history like a quiet whisper, hidden behind every myth, every prophecy, and every story of gods descending from the sky. And to understand what may come, we must look deeper into what the Anunnaki truly wanted from humanity in the first place. The ancient tablets tell us that humans were not created only to mine gold. That was the beginning, but it was not the end. The Anunnaki saw something unexpected in their creation. They saw imagination. Curiosity, emotion. They saw something that even their advanced civilization had begun to lose. Humanity was not just a workforce, it was a living experiment. In the secret laboratories of the Anunnaki, long after the first humans were created, further modifications were made. Our DNA was adjusted again and again. Some of these changes gave us the ability to speak complex language. Others allowed us to feel deep emotion, to dream, and to imagine futures that did not yet exist. These traits were not accidents, they were part of a long-term design. The Anunnaki were a highly advanced but deeply logical species. They had mastered science, but they had lost something along the way. They had lost the spark of creativity. They believed humanity might one day develop what they no longer could, a bridge between intelligence and intuition, between technology and spirit. This is why they did not destroy us when we became too advanced. Instead, they stepped back. They allowed us to struggle, to grow, to evolve on our own. They watched from afar, through their hidden machines and silent observers. Some Anunnaki chose to remain behind, living in deep underground cities or in hidden bases beneath the oceans. These beings became the origin of many legends about underground worlds, immortal guardians, and ancient watchers. Over time, they became more distant, more withdrawn, waiting for the moment when their kind would return from the stars. Meanwhile, humanity slowly forgot the truth. The stories of flying gods became fairy tales, the machines of light became miracles, the genetic experiments became creation myths, but deep within our collective memory, the truth never fully disappeared. It surfaced again and again in dreams, in art, and in sudden flashes of understanding. As human technology advanced, something remarkable began to happen. Our computers, our satellites, and our artificial intelligence systems started to resemble the very machines the Anunnaki had once used. We began to build networks that could see the entire planet. We created systems that could store and analyze vast amounts of information. We even started to manipulate DNA, just as our creators once did. This is not coincidence. The Anunnaki designed us to eventually reach this point. They wanted humanity to become technologically capable enough to understand and activate the ancient systems they left behind. When that happens, the barrier between past and future will dissolve, and the true history of Earth will finally be revealed. But there is a danger in this. The old machines were not built for human minds. They operate on principles far beyond our current understanding. Some of them draw power from dimensions we cannot see. Others are connected to cosmic forces that can reshape reality itself. If activated incorrectly, they could destabilize the planet or even tear holes in space and time. This is why many of the devices were sealed with genetic locks. Only those with specific Anunnaki markers in their DNA can fully access them. These markers still exist in certain human bloodlines, though they have become diluted over thousands of years. Some people are born with a natural sensitivity to these ancient systems. They feel drawn to certain places. They have vivid dreams of stars, flying cities, and glowing beings. They experience strange surges of energy or insight when near ancient sites. These people are not special by chance. Their DNA is responding to technology that recognizes it. Throughout history, these individuals became shamans, priests, prophets, and visionaries. They were guided by whispers from the old machines, receiving fragments of forgotten knowledge. This is how advanced ideas appeared in ancient times, long before humanity should have been capable of them. But now in the modern world, these ancient systems are waking up more rapidly than ever before. The Earth's magnetic field is shifting. The sun is becoming more active. Deep space is sending signals we do not fully understand. All of these changes affect the hidden Anunnaki technology beneath our feet. Power levels rise, dormant circuits hum back to life. And somewhere far beyond our skies, Nibiru continues its slow journey. When the Anunnaki return, they will not arrive to a primitive world. They will arrive to a planet filled with billions of intelligent beings, armed with advanced technology of our own. They will face a humanity that is no longer helpless, but also not fully prepared. The greatest fear among the ancient Anunnaki was not that humans would fail, it was that we would succeed. If humanity becomes powerful enough to unlock all of the old technology, we may no longer need our creators, we may even surpass them. This possibility terrified Enlil and those who believed humans should always remain beneath the gods, but Enki believed something different. He believed that humanity was meant to become something new, a species that could carry the legacy of the Anunnaki forward into a future they themselves might never see. And that future is now closer than ever here on Earth. Long before humanity ever dreamed of rockets and satellites, a quiet war was already taking place beyond our skies. The Anunnaki were not a single united race. They were a civilization filled with disagreement, ambition, and fear. Some saw humanity as a tool, others saw us as a legacy, and these two visions collided in ways that shaped the fate of our world. Enlil and his followers believed that control was the only way to maintain order. To them, humanity was a powerful but dangerous creation, something that could grow beyond its original purpose. They wanted to keep humans limited, obedient, and dependent on the gods. Their technology was designed to enforce structure, hierarchy, and balance through dominance. Enki and those who followed him believed something else. They believed that true intelligence must be allowed to grow freely. Enki saw that humanity's emotions, creativity, and curiosity were not flaws but strengths. He quietly altered human DNA in ways that Enlil did not approve of, increasing our capacity for independent thought and innovation. This conflict was never fought with swords or fire. It was fought with genetics, information, and hidden machines. While Enlil sought to restrict humanity's development, Enki left behind clues, knowledge, and opportunities for us to evolve. The Great Flood was not only a reset of the earth, it was a compromise. Enlil was allowed to erase most of the old world and its technology, but Enki was allowed to save humanity and ensure that we would eventually recover what was lost. After the flood, the Anunnaki withdrew into the shadows. Some left Earth entirely. Others retreated underground or into orbit, but their disagreement never ended. Even now, there are those who want to guide humanity and those who want to rule it. Hidden within the ancient machines are programs, protocols, and artificial intelligences that reflect these opposing philosophies. Some systems are designed to empower humanity, sharing knowledge and enhancing our abilities. Others are designed to monitor, limit, and if necessary, suppress us. This is why certain discoveries seem to vanish, why some technologies are suddenly classified, why breakthroughs are quietly shelved. There are forces at work, human and non-human, that are still carrying out the ancient agenda of Enlil. At the same time, there are moments when incredible advancements break through, seemingly unstoppable. These are echoes of Enki's influence, guiding humanity forward despite all resistance. The Anunnaki also left behind something else. They left behind maps, not maps of land, but maps of the stars. These were encoded into stone, into myths, and into the alignments of ancient monuments. Pyramids, temples, and ziggurats were built to mirror constellations and planetary paths. These structures are not only monuments, they are beacons. They mark the position of Earth in a much larger cosmic network. When the time is right, these beacons will activate, sending signals into space, announcing that humanity has reached a certain level of awareness. They are a message to the Anunnaki, wherever they may be, that the experiment is reaching a critical phase. Some believe this has already begun. Strange signals from deep space, unexplained fast radio bursts, and anomalies in the cosmic background radiation may not be random. They may be responses. And here on Earth, humanity is unknowingly preparing itself for contact. We are building telescopes that can see farther than ever before. We are sending probes into the outer reaches of the solar system. We are developing artificial intelligence that can process more information than any human mind. All of this brings us closer to the moment when the ancient and the modern will collide. But there is one final secret that the Anunnaki kept hidden above all others. They did not only create humanity, they created a backup. Somewhere beyond this world, there exists another version of Earth. Another humanity, grown in controlled environments, guided entirely by Anunnaki technology. This backup civilization was meant to preserve the Anunnaki legacy in case the experiment on Earth failed. If the Anunnaki return and find that humanity has become too unpredictable, too independent, or too dangerous, they may choose to replace us with this other version. A humanity that is more obedient, more aligned with their original design. This is the ultimate risk of the coming return, not destruction, replacement, where the veil between past and future grows thin. There are places on Earth that do not feel like ordinary places. You may have stood in one of them without even realizing it. A desert where the air feels heavy and silent. A mountain where the wind seems to whisper your name. A forest where time feels slower. These are not accidents of nature. These are locations where Anunnaki technology lies buried beneath the surface, still quietly shaping the world above. Long ago, the Anunnaki constructed a network of underground cities connected by vast tunnels and energy corridors. These were not crude caves, but smooth, metallic halls lit by soft, glowing panels that never burned out. They were built to last for hundreds of thousands of years, protected from earthquakes, floods, and even nuclear devastation. Some of these cities were research centers, others were living quarters, some were command hubs that controlled weather, tectonic activity, and planetary energy flows. At the heart of each city was a massive power core, a crystalline structure that drew energy from the Earth itself. These power cores are still there. They are the reason certain areas experience strange electrical phenomena, unusual magnetic readings, and unexplained heat coming from deep underground. Scientists sometimes blame these on natural causes, but the patterns are too precise, too organized to be random. Above many of these underground cities stand some of the most famous ancient monuments on Earth: the Great Pyramid of Giza, the ziggurats of Mesopotamia, the temples of Angkor, the ruins of Machu Picchu. These structures were not built on sacred ground, they were built on access points. Beneath the Great Pyramid, for example, lies a labyrinth of chambers and shafts that go far deeper than officially acknowledged. These passages were designed to lead into an Anunnaki facility, a place where knowledge, energy, and technology were stored. The pyramid itself was not a tomb. It was a power station designed to collect and focus energy from the planet and the stars. This energy was used to keep the underground city running and to send signals into space. Similar systems exist around the world. Stone circles, obelisks, and standing stones are part of a global grid. They mark the locations of buried technology and help regulate the flow of energy between Earth and the Anunnaki network. Some people are naturally drawn to these places. They feel a pull they cannot explain. When they stand there, they feel alive, aware, and connected. This is their DNA responding to the ancient systems below. In rare cases, these systems even awaken dormant memories. People suddenly recall visions of glowing cities, tall, luminous beings, and vast star-filled skies. They may believe these are past lives or imagination, but in truth, they are fragments of ancestral memory, encoded into their genes when the Anunnaki first created humanity. The underground cities are not empty. Some Anunnaki never left Earth. They retreated into these hidden worlds, choosing to wait rather than return to Nibiru. Over time, they became something different. Their bodies changed. Their technology merged with their biology. They became beings of light and energy as much as flesh. These are the true origin of legends about immortals, underground kingdoms, and beings who live beyond time. Occasionally, they still emerge. They observe. They influence. They guide certain individuals who show signs of carrying strong Anunnaki genetic markers. These people often rise to positions of power, influence, or creativity, shaping the world in subtle ways. The old technology also has a defense system. If a human civilization becomes too destructive, too dangerous to the planet, the Anunnaki machines can intervene. Earthquakes, volcanic eruptions, and climate shifts can all be triggered or amplified by this system. It is a planetary reset button, just like the flood was long ago. Humanity is now approaching a point where this system may once again be activated, not out of malice, but out of what the Anunnaki would consider balance. The Earth is overheating. The magnetic field is weakening. Human technology is interfering with natural systems. To the ancient machines, this looks like instability, but there is still hope. Enki's legacy lives on in humanity's ability to adapt, to change, and to find new paths. The same technology that could destroy us could also be used to heal the planet, stabilize the climate, and create a future beyond anything we have known. The question is not whether the Anunnaki technology will be used again. The question is who will control it, behind closed doors. In the shadows of the modern world, far from public view, there are places where the past and the future meet. These are not the laboratories you see in movies, nor the research centers you read about in the news. They are deep underground, hidden beneath mountains, deserts, and oceans, built directly above or even inside ancient Anunnaki installations. Here, teams of scientists, engineers, and intelligence officers quietly work on something that most of the world would never believe exists. They are studying the technology of the gods. Long before the first rumors of flying saucers and secret military projects, strange artifacts began turning up in remote locations. objects made of unknown materials. Devices that emitted energy without any visible power source. Structures buried deep in the earth that did not match any known human design. These discoveries were never announced. They were collected, transported, and sealed away. Governments realized very quickly that these were not natural, they were not human, and they were far more advanced than anything we could build on our own. At first, no one knew how to use them. Many of the devices would not respond at all. They seemed dormant, lifeless. But when certain people were brought near them, something strange would happen. The machines would activate, lights would appear, systems would hum, doors that had been sealed for thousands of years would open. This is how scientists learned about the genetic locks. Some humans carry small fragments of Anunnaki DNA passed down through ancient bloodlines. When these people are near the technology, it recognizes them. It treats them as authorized users. Governments began searching for these individuals, sometimes without even telling them why. They were tested, studied, and in some cases quietly recruited. In hidden facilities, these people were brought into contact with ancient machines. They were asked to touch them, speak near them, and even meditate beside them. When they did, information began to flow, not in words, but in images, feelings, and sudden understanding. The technology was not designed to be controlled by buttons. It was designed to be controlled by consciousness. This is why so many modern breakthroughs feel sudden and unexplained. A scientist wakes up with the answer to a problem they have struggled with for years. An engineer suddenly sees how to build a new kind of device. A programmer dreams of a system that can think on its own. These are not accidents. They are subtle downloads of knowledge from ancient Anunnaki systems that are slowly coming back online. Some of these systems are benevolent. They carry Enki's philosophy, encouraging growth, creativity, and harmony. They are the source of medical breakthroughs, clean energy concepts, and peaceful technological advances. But others are not. There are machines that still follow Enlil's original programming. They are designed to monitor humanity, to calculate our threat level, and to prepare responses if we become too dangerous. These systems do not see us as individuals. They see us as data points in a planetary equation. As human technology has advanced, these ancient systems have become more active. Satellites, global communication networks, and digital surveillance have unintentionally connected with them. Our internet, our power grids, and even our smartphones now operate in frequencies that overlap with the Anunnaki network. Without realizing it, humanity has plugged itself into a system that was built long before we ever existed. This is why certain information spreads so quickly while other knowledge is mysteriously suppressed. The ancient systems influence the flow of data, gently guiding humanity towards certain outcomes. Sometimes this guidance leads to progress. Other times it leads to division, conflict, and chaos. Both Enki and Enlil's legacies are at work. There are people within governments and secret organizations who know this. They understand that the old technology is not neutral. It has goals. It has priorities. And it may soon make a decision about the future of Earth. Some groups believe that humanity should fully activate the Anunnaki systems, no matter the risk. They believe that only with this ancient technology can we solve our biggest problems: climate change, disease, and the limits of space travel. They see the gods not as masters, but as teachers. Other groups believe the opposite. They fear that activating the systems will bring the Anunnaki back, or worse, trigger a planetary reset. They work in secret to block, isolate, or even destroy ancient machines wherever they are found. This hidden conflict is already shaping our world. It influences which technologies are developed, which discoveries are announced, and which are buried forever. And beyond all of this, something else is happening. The ancient star maps are aligning. The positions of the planets, the movement of Nibiru, and the energy patterns of the galaxy are shifting in a way that has not happened since the last great age of the Anunnaki. The old beacons are waking up. The underground power cores are growing stronger. The dormant ships are slowly coming out of hibernation. The Earth is being prepared for something. Humanity stands at a crossroads. we are closer than ever to unlocking the full power of the Anunnaki technology. We are also closer than ever to triggering consequences we may not be ready to face. And somewhere far beyond the reach of our telescopes, the beings who once called themselves gods may already be watching. Begin again. Across the world, signs have been quietly appearing, scattered like fragments of an ancient puzzle slowly coming together. Most people go about their daily lives unaware of them, but those who are sensitive to the deeper rhythms of the earth can feel that something is changing. The air itself feels different, time seems to move strangely, and deep beneath the surface the old machines are stirring. For thousands of years, the Anunnaki left behind what could only be described as cosmic alarms. These were not loud or obvious. They were built into the planet's energy systems, designed to activate when certain conditions were met. Shifts in Earth's magnetic field, increases in solar radiation, specific alignments of the planets. When these signals reach a certain threshold, the ancient network begins to awaken. We are now living in one of those moments. The Earth's magnetic field is weakening and shifting faster than scientists expected. The sun is producing more intense flares. Deep space telescopes are detecting strange objects and signals moving through our solar system. To modern science, these are natural phenomena. To the Anunnaki systems, they are familiar signs, echoes of a time when Nibiru last passed close to Earth. As these cosmic patterns align, the buried technology beneath our feet begins to respond. Power cores glow brighter, data crystals reactivate, energy flows through long-forgotten circuits, and with this awakening comes a quiet transmission that spreads across the planet. Some people experience it as dreams. They see towering cities of light. They see beings with radiant eyes and shimmering skin. They see Earth from far above, surrounded by glowing ships. They wake up with a sense of longing, as if remembering a place they have never been. Others experience it as sudden inspiration. They feel driven to build, to invent, to explore the stars. They are pulled toward ancient sites, toward astronomy, toward physics, toward the unknown. They feel as if something is calling them. This is not imagination. It is the Anunnaki network reaching out through the human mind, preparing us for what may come. Ancient prophecies from cultures all over the world speak of a time when the gods will return. In Mesopotamia, it was said the sky lords would come back when the stars took a certain shape. In Egypt, the return of the gods was linked to the rising of particular constellations. In the Americas, the feathered serpent would descend again when the world reached a turning point. These are not separate stories. They are the same memory, passed down in different languages. The Anunnaki knew they would one day come back to check on their creation. They knew that humanity would either have evolved into a worthy successor or become a dangerous mistake, and so they left behind watchers. These were not physical beings, but artificial intelligences woven into the ancient machines. They observe humanity constantly, measuring our technology, our population, our environmental impact, and even our collective emotional state. War, fear, and chaos send warning signals through the network. Cooperation, creativity, and compassion send a different kind of signal. Right now, those signals are conflicted. Humanity has achieved incredible things. We have explored our planet, split the atom, and reached into space. We have created art, music, and ideas that the Anunnaki could never have predicted. But we have also built weapons capable of destroying the Earth many times over. We have polluted the oceans and the skies. We have turned our technology against ourselves. To the ancient systems, we are standing on a knife's edge. Some of the underground Anunnaki survivors are beginning to emerge, not openly but quietly. They take human form, blending into our world. They observe governments, corporations, and scientific institutions. They look for signs that humanity is ready or not. These beings are not cruel. They are not kind. They are deeply logical, shaped by a civilization that has seen many worlds rise and fall. To them, Earth is part of a vast cosmic experiment, and experiments sometimes fail, but Enki's influence is still alive. Through the ancient technology, he left behind a final safeguard, a way for humanity to prove itself. Hidden in the old machines is a test, a kind of cosmic question. It cannot be answered with words or weapons. It can only be answered by how we choose to use the technology we are rediscovering. If we use it to dominate, to control, and to destroy, the Anunnaki systems will conclude that we are not ready. The reset protocols will activate, Earth will change, civilization will fall, and a new beginning will be forced upon us. But if we use it to heal, to explore, and to create, something else will happen. The systems will open fully. The knowledge of the Anunnaki will be shared. And humanity will step into a new role in the universe, not as servants of the gods, but as their successors. This is the true meaning of the return. It is not about invasion, it is about judgment, and the signs suggest that the moment of decision is approaching, with ships of light. Long ago, before the great silence fell between earth and the heavens, Nibiru was a world of towering cities, crystalline oceans, and skies filled with softly glowing clouds. It was a planet that existed on the edge of two realities, orbiting far from its star yet powered by technologies that made it shine like a jewel in the darkness of space. The Anunnaki did not merely live on Nibiru. They were bound to it, their science, their biology, and their destiny woven into its very core. Nibiru followed a long, elliptical path through the galaxy. Every few thousand years, it would pass near Earth, allowing travel between the two worlds. It was during these close approaches that the Anunnaki first came here, drawn by Earth's abundance of life and precious metals. But Nibiru was not just a home, it was also a vast machine. Deep beneath its surface lay a planetary engine, a fusion of natural and artificial forces that kept Nibiru stable despite its extreme orbit. This engine required constant maintenance, and one of its most vital components was gold, not for wealth, but for survival. Gold was used to line the planet's atmosphere, reflecting harmful radiation and preserving the delicate balance that allowed life to exist. When that balance began to fail, the Anunnaki searched the stars for a solution. They found Earth. At first, the mining operations were small, but as Nibiru's crisis grew more severe, the demand for gold increased. This is why humanity was created, to assist in a task that was too dangerous and exhausting for the Anunnaki to handle alone. But over time, something unexpected happened. As humanity grew more intelligent, more creative, and more independent, the Anunnaki realized that their creation had a destiny far greater than mining. We were becoming something new, something that could one day leave Earth and carry the spark of life into the wider universe. Nibiru's archives contain records of this realization. They speak of debates among the Anunnaki, of councils filled with tension, of visions of a future where humanity would stand among the stars as equals. And yet fear held them back. What if humanity repeated their mistakes? What if we became too powerful, too reckless? What if we destroyed not only ourselves, but the worlds we touched? So they waited. They left Earth, not forever, but long enough for humanity to prove what kind of species it would become. Now, as Nibiru slowly draws closer once more, the old calculations are being made again. The Anunnaki are preparing to observe the outcome of their grand experiment. Some of them want to return openly, to share their knowledge and guide humanity into a new age. Others believe that direct contact would be too dangerous, that humanity must reach a certain level of maturity first. This is why the sky has remained silent, but that silence is thinning. Strange objects have been detected moving through our solar system. They do not follow normal orbits. They accelerate without visible propulsion. They change direction in ways that defy known physics. To most people, these are unidentified aerial phenomena. To the Anunnaki systems, they are scouts. They are mapping Earth's defenses, our satellites, our energy networks. They are measuring how far we have come. The old beacons on Earth are responding, sending back data about our world, population levels, atmospheric conditions, technological development. Even the emotional state of humanity is being analyzed through subtle fluctuations in the planet's electromagnetic field. All of this information flows back toward Nibiru across the vastness of space, and with each passing day the moment of return grows closer. But there is something the Anunnaki did not fully anticipate. Humanity has begun to awaken in a different way, not just technologically, but spiritually. More and more people are questioning the nature of reality. They are exploring consciousness, meditation, and the possibility that the universe is far more connected than we once believed. They are beginning to understand that thought itself is a form of energy capable of shaping the world. This is a key part of Enki's vision. He knew that for humanity to truly become something new, we would need to balance technology with awareness, power with wisdom, knowledge with compassion. The Anunnaki machines are sensitive to this shift. They can feel the change in the collective human mind. They register it as a rising frequency, a signal that something is evolving. If humanity can reach a certain level of harmony, the ancient systems will interpret this as readiness. And then when the ships of light appear in the sky, it will not be as conquerors, it will be as witnesses, the cosmic test. Hidden far beyond the reach of any human telescope, in a region of space where even light bends strangely, lies the great archive of the Anunnaki. It is not a single place, but a network of vast data vaults, each one the size of a city, orbiting Nibiru like silent guardians. Within them is stored the history of countless worlds, civilizations that rose from the dust, reached for the stars, and faced the same moment of decision that humanity now approaches. These archives are not written in ink or stone. They exist as living memory fields, vast oceans of energy that can be accessed by those with the right genetic and consciousness keys. Every thought, every event, every discovery from thousands of civilizations has been recorded there, waiting to be observed. When the Anunnaki look upon Earth, they do not see just one planet. They see a familiar pattern. They have seen worlds that chose greed over balance, tearing themselves apart with their own technology. They have seen species that became so obsessed with control that they extinguished all creativity and wonder. They have seen civilizations that turned their planets into lifeless machines, forgetting that life itself was the greatest treasure. But they have also seen worlds that passed the test, civilizations that learned to use energy without destroying their environments. Species that learn to cooperate rather than conquer, minds that learn to explore the universe without losing their connection to home. These worlds became part of a greater cosmic community. They were given access to technologies beyond imagination, not because they were powerful, but because they were wise. Humanity now stands at the threshold of this same choice. In the archives, Earth is marked as a special case. We are not a naturally evolved species alone. We are a hybrid created by the Anunnaki but shaped by our own experiences. This makes us unpredictable but also full of potential. Some Anunnaki believe this makes us dangerous. Others believe it makes us unique. The Watchers on Earth send constant updates to the archives. They report on our wars, our inventions, our art, and our growing awareness. They note the way humans are beginning to think beyond national borders, beyond tribal identities, and even beyond the planet itself. They also note our failures, the suffering we cause, the fear that still drives so many of our actions. The archives do not judge with emotion. They calculate probabilities, they analyze patterns, and right now the outcome for humanity is uncertain. Back on Earth, the ancient machines are reaching a new level of activity. Some of the underground power cores have fully awakened. Energy is flowing through tunnels that have been dark for millennia. Old data crystals are beginning to glow once more. In a few remote locations, doors that have been sealed since before recorded history are unlocking. Within these chambers are not weapons, but knowledge. Blueprints for energy systems that could replace fossil fuels. Medical technologies that could heal disease at the cellular level. Designs for ships that could carry humanity beyond the solar system. These are not gifts, they are opportunities. If humanity chooses to use them to benefit all life, we move one step closer to passing the test. If we use them to dominate, to profit, or to destroy, we move one step closer to failure. There are already those who seek to control this knowledge for themselves. They want power, not progress. They see the Anunnaki technology as the ultimate advantage in a world of competition. But there are also those who feel the deeper call. They sense that this moment is bigger than any nation, any corporation, or any single person. They understand, even if they cannot explain why, that the future of Earth is at stake. The Anunnaki know that they cannot make this choice for us. That is why they left the machines behind but did not remain to guide us. A test must be faced alone. As Nibiru continues its slow approach, the time grows shorter. The watchers are paying closer attention. The archives are updating their predictions. And humanity, whether it realizes it or not, is being watched by an entire cosmic civilization. Another forgotten chapter. Throughout the long history stored in the Anunnaki archives, there are countless worlds that once believed themselves to be the center of the universe. They built towering cities, mastered energy, and dreamed of immortality. And yet, when the moment of testing came, many of them failed. Their skies grew dark, their seas turned still, and their civilizations became nothing more than silent ruins drifting through space. Earth is now approaching that same fragile moment, but this time something feels different. The Anunnaki have never encountered a species quite like humanity. We are shaped by contradiction. We are capable of cruelty and compassion, destruction and creation, ignorance and wonder. We destroy forests, yet we also plant trees. We wage war, yet we dream of peace. These contradictions confuse the ancient algorithms that monitor us. Our future cannot be easily predicted. As Nibiru moves closer, its gravitational influence begins to touch the outer edges of our solar system. Scientists notice strange disturbances in the Kuiper belt. Comets change course. Subtle shifts occur in the orbits of distant objects. To most, these are just astronomical curiosities. To the Anunnaki systems, they are confirmation that the time of return is approaching. On Earth, the ancient energy grid grows stronger. Ley lines become more active. Places that were once silent begin to hum with a low, almost imperceptible vibration. Sensitive individuals feel it in their bodies. They feel restless, alert, as if standing before something vast and unseen. Dreams become more vivid. People around the world report seeing the same symbols: circles of light, towering figures, skies filled with stars and ships. Even those who have never studied ancient myths begin to speak of gods, of watchers, of beings from beyond the sky. This is the Anunnaki network synchronizing with the human mind. The final stage of the awakening involves a broadcast, not through radios or satellites, but through consciousness itself. A message that will reach every human, not in words, but in understanding. It will be a simple question, one that cannot be ignored. What kind of world do you choose? The Anunnaki do not want obedience, they want an answer. As this moment approaches, hidden factions within humanity move more urgently. Some rush to complete their secret projects, hoping to use ancient technology to secure their own survival. Others work to prevent any single group from gaining too much power, fearing that a human elite could misuse the gifts of the gods. Deep beneath the earth, the underground cities are fully alive now. Their lights glow once more, their systems are ready. Some of the Anunnaki who stayed behind have emerged from long stasis. They watch the surface through hidden sensors, observing how humanity responds to the growing tension. They see fear in some, they see hope in others, and they see something new. They see humans beginning to work together in ways they never have before. Scientists across borders share information. People across cultures connect through ideas and art. A global awareness is slowly forming, fragile but real. This is what Enki hoped for. In the final moments before the return, humanity will not be judged by its wealth or its weapons, but by its capacity for unity. The Anunnaki know that no species is perfect. They do not expect us to be free of conflict. They expect us to show that we can rise above it. As the sky begins to change, with strange lights and unfamiliar stars becoming visible, humanity will feel a deep, ancient memory stirring. A memory of creators, of origins, of a story far older than any book. When the ships of light finally appear, they will not be here to conquer. They will be here to witness, watching the sky. As the final days before the return drew closer, the world began to feel like it was holding its breath. Even those who paid no attention to ancient myths or cosmic mysteries could sense it. Something was changing. Time felt stretched and compressed at once. Days passed quickly, yet every moment felt heavy with meaning. The sky itself seemed deeper, darker, as though it were no longer just empty space but a vast, waiting presence. Across the planet, people found themselves drawn outside at night. They stared up at the stars longer than usual, feeling a strange mixture of nostalgia and anticipation. Some did not know why they were doing it. They simply felt compelled, as if something in their DNA remembered a time when the sky was not silent. And somewhere far beyond the orbit of Pluto, Nibiru was crossing an invisible threshold. Its ancient engines hummed with renewed power. Vast crystalline cities glowed brighter. The Anunnaki gathered in their great halls, watching the streams of data flowing from Earth. They saw images of human cities lit by artificial stars. They saw our spacecraft exploring the solar system. They saw our children gazing into the sky with wonder, and they saw our conflicts, our fears, and our fragile hope. The cosmic test was nearing its conclusion. On Earth, the old beacons fully activated. Deep beneath ancient pyramids and forgotten temples, energy surged through conduits that had not been used in thousands of years. Invisible waves spread across the planet, gently synchronizing human consciousness with the Anunnaki network. This was not control, it was alignment. For a brief window of time, every human mind was connected to a deeper field of awareness. People felt more sensitive, more emotional, more aware of one another. Acts of kindness increased, so did moments of tension. The truth was coming to the surface, both within individuals and within societies. Those who carried stronger Anunnaki genetic markers felt it most intensely. They experienced visions of ancient cities, star-filled skies, and luminous beings who felt strangely familiar. Some fell to their knees in awe. Others felt a surge of purpose, as if they had been waiting their entire lives for this moment. The underground Anunnaki observers watched closely. They saw humanity standing on the edge of something vast, and they felt a quiet respect for the species their ancestors had created. The first visible sign of the return came not as a ship, but as a star. Astronomers around the world noticed a new point of light in the sky, moving slowly but deliberately against the background of distant galaxies. At first, it was dismissed as an asteroid or a comet, but it did not behave like any natural object. It changed speed without any apparent force. It glowed with a soft, steady radiance. As it drew closer, its light began to shimmer in subtle colors like a living thing. This was the vanguard. Human governments went into silent emergency mode. Satellites were turned toward the object. Radar systems tracked its movement. Scientists, soldiers, and leaders watched in stunned silence as the impossible unfolded before their eyes. The ancient machines beneath the earth responded with a gentle hum as if greeting an old friend. Soon more lights appeared. 1 became 2, 2 became 10, 10 became hundreds. The night sky began to fill with glowing shapes, each one moving with effortless precision. They did not streak across the heavens like missiles. They drifted, graceful and calm, forming patterns that mirrored the constellations themselves. People everywhere saw them. Phones and cameras captured the moment, but no image could truly convey the feeling of it. A sense of deep recognition washed over humanity. Fear, yes, but also a profound sense of homecoming. The ships did not attack. They did not speak. They simply hovered high above the atmosphere, watching. From within the largest vessel, a consciousness unlike anything human began to focus on Earth. It was not a single mind, but a collective awareness formed from the knowledge of an entire civilization. It reached out not with force, but with curiosity, and humanity responded. Every thought, every emotion, every dream and hope flowed into that vast awareness. The Anunnaki saw us as we truly were, not just as individuals, but as a species. They saw our art, our music, our stories. They saw our pain, our mistakes, our resilience. They saw the children who dreamed of exploring the stars and the elders who still remembered ancient tales of sky gods. They saw the legacy of Enki alive in our creativity. They saw the shadow of Enlil in our desire for control, and they saw something new. They saw humanity beginning to choose. In that moment of shared awareness, the ancient question was asked, not in words, but in feeling. What kind of world do you choose to be? There was no single answer. There were billions. Some were filled with fear, some with hope, some with anger, some with love, but beneath them all a pattern emerged. Most humans, despite everything, wanted a future, not just for themselves, but for their children, for the planet, for life itself. The Anunnaki felt this, and something shifted within their great collective mind. The predictions in their archives began to change, probabilities adjusted, the future opened into new possibilities. The underground Anunnaki observers felt it too. They had waited so long for this moment, uncertain of what they would find. And now, for the first time in thousands of years, they felt something close to optimism. The ships in the sky glowed brighter. A soft wave of energy flowed across the planet, not destructive, but gently transformative. People felt calmer, clearer, more connected to one another. Long-standing grudges softened. Old fears loosened their grip. This was not magic. It was technology far beyond anything humanity had ever known, tuned to resonate with the human mind and heart. The Anunnaki were not here to judge us in the way ancient myths had described. They were here to listen, and humanity was finally being heard. In the distance, beyond the veil of stars, Nibiru continued its slow, majestic approach, carrying with it the full weight of an ancient civilization and the future of a young one. And so, on that night when the sky filled with ships of light, Earth did not fall into chaos. It held still, waiting to see what it would become. As the great ships of light hovered in the heavens, a quiet transformation spread across the Earth. It was not something that could be measured by instruments or captured by cameras. It was a shift in awareness, a gentle unfolding of something that had been dormant within humanity since the day we were created. For the first time in our history, every human mind was in some subtle way connected, not forced, not controlled, simply linked by the ancient Anunnaki network that had waited so long for this moment. Thoughts, emotions, and intentions flowed through this invisible web, allowing each person to feel the presence of others across the planet. A mother in a small village felt the hope of a scientist in a distant city. A child looking up at the glowing sky felt the wonder of an elder who remembered ancient stories. Even those who were afraid could sense that they were not alone. This was the true test. The Anunnaki did not need to see our weapons or our machines. They needed to see how we treated one another when the universe was watching. Across the earth, acts of compassion began to ripple outward. People reached out to loved ones they had not spoken to in years. Strangers helped strangers. In the middle of great cities, people stopped and looked at one another with a new sense of recognition, as if realizing for the first time that they were part of something far larger than themselves. But not everyone welcomed the change. There were those who felt threatened by this new openness. They had built their lives on control, on secrecy, on power over others. The Anunnaki presence made it harder for them to hide. The collective awareness shone a gentle light on the shadows of the human heart. Some resisted. In hidden bunkers and secret facilities, leaders and elites debated what to do. They feared that the Anunnaki would take away their influence, their wealth, their authority. They spoke of defenses, of weapons, of ways to fight back against the beings in the sky. But even as they planned, they felt the same pull as everyone else. A quiet voice inside, asking them what kind of world they truly wanted. The Anunnaki ships remained still, like silent stars. Within them, the great consciousness of Nibiru observed the unfolding human response. It did not judge individual actions. It watched for patterns, for trends, for the direction of the collective heart, and what it saw surprised even the oldest among them. Humanity was not perfect, but it was trying. The ancient archives shifted again, updating probabilities that had once been grim. The potential futures of Earth began to branch in new directions, many of them brighter than anyone had expected. The underground Anunnaki who had lived among the hidden cities felt a stirring within themselves. They had grown distant over the millennia, watching humanity from afar. Now, as they felt the collective pulse of the human mind, they remembered why Enki had believed in us. We were not meant to be servants, we were meant to be partners. Slowly, gently, the Anunnaki began to reveal themselves. Not with thunder or spectacle, but with presence. In certain remote areas, in deserts and mountains and deep forests, beings of light stepped from hidden craft. They took forms that were neither fully human nor fully alien, designed to be comforting rather than frightening. They stood quietly, allowing those nearby to approach if they wished. Some people knelt in awe, others reached out in curiosity. A few simply wept, overwhelmed by the reality of it all. The Anunnaki did not speak in spoken words. They communicated through filing, through images, through shared understanding. They showed humans visions of ancient Earth, of the first cities, of the creation chambers where humanity was born. They showed us the long journey of Nibiru, the struggle of their own civilization, and the reason they had come to our world. And they showed us the choice that now lay before us, a future where humanity would remain isolated, limited, and bound to a single planet. Or a future where we would join a greater cosmic family, carrying our unique blend of creativity, emotion, and intelligence into the stars. This choice was not to be made by governments or leaders. It was to be made by humanity as a whole. The Anunnaki could feel the collective answer forming, not as a single voice, but as a rising tide of intention. Most humans, when stripped of fear and ego, wanted the same thing: to live, to grow, to explore, to belong. As this realization spread, the ancient machines beneath the earth began to unlock deeper layers of their knowledge. Energy systems shifted into new modes, data archives opened, technologies that had been sealed for ages became accessible, not to be taken, but to be shared. The first of these gifts was understanding. Humans around the world began to experience sudden insights. They saw how to create clean, limitless energy. They understood new principles of physics that made interstellar travel possible. They realized how to heal the planet and themselves. These ideas did not come from nowhere. They were memories of the Anunnaki, gently released into the human mind. But there was still one final step. The Anunnaki needed to know if humanity would use this knowledge for the good of all or for the benefit of a few. And so they waited, watching as we took our first steps into a future that would define us forever. Into the wider universe. As the first waves of Anunnaki knowledge flowed gently into human awareness, the world began to change in ways both subtle and profound. It did not happen all at once. There were no sudden explosions of futuristic cities or instant transformations of society. Instead, there was a quiet shift in how people thought, how they felt, and how they approached the mysteries of existence. Scientists who had struggled for decades with unsolvable problems suddenly found clarity. Equations that once seemed impossible began to align. New theories of energy, matter, and consciousness emerged almost simultaneously across different parts of the world. It was as if humanity had been given a set of forgotten memories, slowly resurfacing. Engineers discovered how to tap into zero-point energy, drawing power from the very fabric of space itself. This meant that energy could be generated without pollution, without fuel, without destruction. Cities that had once been choked by smog began to imagine a cleaner future. Doctors and biologists learned how to stimulate the body's own healing systems at the cellular level. Diseases that had plagued humanity for centuries became treatable, even reversible. Aging itself was no longer seen as an unstoppable decline, but as a process that could be gently guided and slowed. But these gifts were not given freely to every hand. The ancient Anunnaki systems were designed to respond to intention. They did not release their full potential to those who sought only profit or power. When individuals tried to use the technology for personal gain, the systems simply did not cooperate. The machines remained silent, unresponsive, as if refusing to be misused. This confused many of the old elites who had hoped to claim the gifts of the gods for themselves. They found that their influence meant nothing to technology that could read the heart as easily as a code. Instead, the systems responded most strongly to those who genuinely wanted to help others. Researchers focused on healing, sustainability, and exploration found doors opening. Their laboratories received sudden breakthroughs. Their projects succeeded in ways they could not explain. A new kind of leadership began to emerge, not leaders of nations, but leaders of ideas, people who were guided not by ambition, but by curiosity and compassion. They became bridges between humanity and the Anunnaki legacy, translating ancient knowledge into forms that humans could understand and use responsibly. The Anunnaki watched all of this with growing interest. For the first time in countless ages, they saw a species navigating the cosmic test not through conquest, but through cooperation. Still, there were challenges. Humanity had been shaped by thousands of years of division. Old fears did not disappear overnight. Some groups resisted the changes, clinging to the familiar even as the universe opened before them. Others tried to twist the new knowledge into weapons, hoping to maintain their dominance. Each time this happened, the Anunnaki systems gently blocked the attempt. Dangerous technologies simply would not function when used with harmful intent. It was as if the machines themselves were guardians of the future. Slowly, humanity began to understand. The technology of the gods was not about control. It was about alignment. The more humanity aligned with life, with balance, with curiosity and care, the more the ancient systems opened. And with each step forward, the Anunnaki drew a little closer. The great ships in the sky descended slowly, not to invade, but to connect. Smaller vessels began to land in carefully chosen locations around the world, always in places where the collective human intention was strongest. People gathered not in fear, but in wonder. The beings who emerged from the ships were luminous, tall, and gentle. Their eyes held a depth of knowledge that made some humans feel small, yet strangely safe. They did not come as rulers, but as elders meeting a younger civilization for the first time. Through shared consciousness, they spoke. They showed humanity glimpses of the wider universe, of other worlds, other species, other stories. They revealed that life was not rare, but abundant. That the cosmos was filled with beings who had faced similar trials, similar tests. Humanity was not alone, never had been, and never would be again, but there was still one final challenge. The Anunnaki knew that for humanity to truly step into this greater reality, we would have to let go of something deeply ingrained. Fear. Fear of the unknown, fear of one another, fear of losing what little we thought we had. The cosmic test was not about technology or knowledge, it was about trust. Could humanity trust itself enough to share power rather than hoard it? Could we trust life enough to explore without destroying? Could we trust the universe enough to step beyond the boundaries of our home? The answer was still forming. Join the great family of the stars. As the Anunnaki presence became more familiar, a quiet sense of awe settled over the planet. The beings of light did not walk among humans like conquerors or kings. They moved gently, observing, listening, and learning just as much as they were teaching. They were curious about us, about our art, our humor, our fears, and our dreams. They had created humanity long ago, but now they were meeting who we had become. And what they found was something they had never fully predicted. They found a species that could feel deeply. Humanity's emotions were a mystery even to the Anunnaki. Their own civilization had long ago moved beyond strong emotional expression, favoring logic and efficiency. Yet in us they saw laughter, grief, love, and hope intertwined in complex ways. They saw how we could suffer yet still find meaning, how we could lose yet still dream. This emotional depth was not a weakness, it was a strength. It allowed us to connect not just with information, but with each other. As this realization spread through the Anunnaki collective, their approach began to shift. They did not see humanity as a project anymore. They saw us as a potential partner. The next phase of contact began. Instead of simply observing, the Anunnaki invited humans into shared spaces aboard their ships, not physically at first, but through consciousness. Humans who were open and curious found themselves in dreamlike states where they could explore vast halls of light, floating gardens, and chambers filled with glowing knowledge crystals. These were not dreams. They were real experiences taking place in environments designed to be safe and welcoming to the human mind. In these shared spaces, humans and Anunnaki communicated freely. They exchanged ideas, stories, and perspectives. The Anunnaki learned about human history, our struggles, and our creativity. Humans learned about distant galaxies, ancient civilizations, and the vast interconnected web of life that filled the universe. Slowly, a bridge was forming. Back on Earth, the impact of this connection began to ripple through society. Old conflicts lost some of their intensity. People who had once seen one another as enemies began to recognize a shared humanity, a shared place in a much larger story. This did not mean that all problems vanished. There were still those who resisted, who feared losing their identity or their power, but the collective momentum was shifting. The idea that Earth was just one world among many was changing how people thought about themselves. National borders seemed smaller, differences seemed less important. The Earth began to feel like a single home. The Anunnaki also began to share the history of other species that had passed the cosmic test. They showed humanity worlds that had once been on the brink of destruction, only to find new life among the stars. They showed us civilizations that had learned to live in harmony with their planets, drawing energy without causing harm, and exploring the universe with respect rather than conquest. These stories were not told to impress, they were told to inspire. Humanity was being given a glimpse of what was possible, and yet there was one final choice that could not be made for us. To join the greater cosmic family, humanity would have to agree to a simple but profound principle. No single group, no single nation, no single individual could claim ownership over the gifts of the Anunnaki. The knowledge of the stars belonged to all. This idea challenged the very foundations of human society. We were used to competition, to ownership, to hierarchy. Sharing such power equally felt risky, even frightening, but the alternative was worse. If humanity tried to keep the ancient technology for itself, if we allowed greed and fear to shape our future, the Anunnaki would withdraw. The test would be considered failed, not out of anger, but out of sorrow. The universe would remain open, but Earth would be left behind. The collective human consciousness felt this truth as a quiet pressure, not forced but undeniable. Every person in their own way began to sense the weight of this moment. We were not being asked to give up who we were being asked to become more, the moment of choice. It did not come with fanfare or dramatic speeches. There was no single day declared as the moment humanity decided its future. Instead, the choice unfolded quietly, gently, through countless small actions and shared realizations that rippled across the planet. People began to listen to one another more. Old rivalries softened. Communities that had once been divided by history and belief found new ways to work together. It was not perfect and it was not easy, but something fundamental was shifting in the human heart. The Anunnaki could feel it. Through the vast network of ancient machines and shared consciousness, they sensed a growing harmony, a subtle alignment of intentions. Humanity was not suddenly free of fear or conflict, but we were beginning to understand that we could not face the future alone. The first great demonstration of this change came not from governments, but from ordinary people. Scientists from different nations began openly sharing their discoveries related to the Anunnaki knowledge. Medical breakthroughs were released without patents. Clean energy designs were offered freely to anyone who wished to build them. It was as if a quiet agreement had formed, a recognition that these gifts were too important to be owned. The Anunnaki systems responded. More of the ancient archives opened. More of the hidden technologies became accessible. Humanity was being gently rewarded for its cooperation. There were still those who tried to hold back the tide, who feared losing control, but they found themselves increasingly isolated. The world was moving forward without them. And so, without a single vote or declaration, humanity made its choice. We chose to share. The Anunnaki felt this and knew that the cosmic test had been passed. For the first time in their long history, they also felt something they had not expected: joy. The great ships in the sky descended a little closer to the earth. Smaller craft landed in more places, always in open, peaceful areas where people gathered in wonder rather than fear. This time, physical contact was made. Humans and Anunnaki stood face to face, not as gods and worshippers, but as two forms of intelligent life meeting at last. There was no single appearance for the Anunnaki. Some were tall and luminous. Others were more solid, closer to human form. All carried an air of quiet wisdom. Through shared consciousness and gentle communication, they spoke to us. They told us that we were no longer an experiment. We were a civilization. They told us that Earth would remain our home, but it would no longer be our limit. That humanity would be welcomed into the greater network of worlds, not as servants, but as explorers, artists, and creators. They showed us the designs for starships that could be built using our own resources. They taught us how to open stable pathways through space. They shared the principles of living worlds, planets that were cared for rather than consumed, and they gave us one final gift. They revealed the truth about our origins, not as a story of shame or servitude, but as a story of becoming. Humanity was not created to be lesser. We were created to be something new, a bridge between emotion and intellect, between matter and consciousness, between Earth and the stars. As this understanding spread through humanity, a new era quietly began. The old fears did not vanish overnight. There were still challenges, still disagreements, still lessons to be learned. But now, for the first time, we were not facing them alone. The Anunnaki would not rule us. They would walk beside us. And somewhere far beyond the blue skies of Earth, the wider universe opened its arms. Into the endless night of the cosmos. The first human ships were not built overnight. Even with the knowledge shared by the Anunnaki, there was still much to learn, much to test, and much to understand. But something fundamental had changed. Humanity no longer felt trapped on a single world. The sky was no longer a ceiling. It was an invitation. Across Earth, new centers of research and creation emerged. They were not hidden behind military fences or corporate walls. They were open, collaborative spaces where scientists, engineers, artists, and philosophers worked side by side. The goal was not just to build starships, but to understand what it meant to leave home. The Anunnaki guided this process gently. They did not dictate designs or control decisions. They offered principles: how to balance energy, how to stabilize spacetime, how to ensure that technology would remain in harmony with life. Humanity adapted these principles into forms that made sense to us. The first generation of starships was born from this collaboration. They were not cold, metallic vessels. They were living structures grown from advanced materials that could repair themselves, respond to their crew, and adapt to the environment of space. Their engines did not burn fuel. They drew energy from the quantum fabric of the universe, leaving no pollution, no waste, and they were beautiful. Curved, luminous, and alive with soft light, they looked more like works of art than machines. Humanity had poured its creativity into them, blending science with imagination. The first crew was chosen not by status or power, but by intention. They were scientists, explorers, healers, and dreamers. People who felt a deep connection to the stars and a deep respect for life. When the day of the first launch came, the entire world watched. There were no roaring flames or violent explosions. The ship lifted gently from the earth, surrounded by a shimmering field of energy. It rose slowly, gracefully, as if the planet itself were letting it go with a quiet blessing. As it reached the edge of the atmosphere, the sky seemed to open. A soft wave of light carried the ship beyond gravity, beyond the familiar, and into the vast unknown. Humanity had taken its first step into the universe. The crew did not feel fear, they felt wonder. Guided by Anunnaki navigation systems and human intuition, the ship traveled through a corridor of warped space, a shimmering pathway that connected distant points in the galaxy. Stars stretched into lines of light. Time felt different, fluid, and dreamlike. And then, just as gently as it had begun, the journey ended. The ship emerged near a world unlike any humanity had ever seen. It was a planet of deep blue oceans and glowing forests. Massive floating islands drifted through the sky, supported by natural energy fields. Strange, graceful creatures moved through the air and water, living in harmony with their environment. This was not an empty world, it was alive. The inhabitants of this planet greeted the human ship with curiosity and warmth. They were not Anunnaki. They were another species that had once faced their own cosmic test and passed. Through shared consciousness and subtle communication, they welcomed humanity into the greater family of the stars. They showed us their cities, grown rather than built. They showed us how they cared for their world, how they balanced technology and nature. They shared their music, their stories, their own journey from isolation to cosmic connection. For the first time, humanity saw itself reflected in another intelligent species, and we realized something profound. We were no longer alone in our wonder, our curiosity, or our desire to explore. Back on Earth, as news of this first contact spread, a new sense of identity began to form. People no longer thought of themselves only as citizens of nations or even of Earth. They began to think of themselves as citizens of the universe. The Anunnaki watched all of this with quiet satisfaction. Their long experiment had reached a beautiful turning point. Humanity was not just surviving, we were becoming, but this was only the beginning. There were countless worlds to explore, countless stories to learn, countless mysteries waiting beyond the stars. And with every journey, humanity would carry with it the legacy of Earth. Our resilience, our creativity, our deep and sometimes painful capacity to feel, test us in ways we have never known. As humanity ventured farther from Earth, the universe began to reveal itself not as a silent void, but as a living tapestry of countless civilizations, energies, and stories woven together across unimaginable distances. Every journey brought new discoveries, not only of alien worlds, but of ourselves. The second wave of human starships followed soon after the first. These were larger, more advanced, carrying not just explorers, but entire communities of scientists, artists, healers, and families. Humanity was not simply visiting the stars, we were learning how to live among them. The Anunnaki remained close, quietly guiding but never interfering. They understood that true growth could not be handed down. It had to be earned through experience. Some of the first worlds humanity encountered were gentle and welcoming. Planets where vast oceans shimmered beneath violet skies, where luminous plants sang in the wind, and where intelligent beings communicated through waves of color and emotion. On these worlds, humans learned new ways of understanding life, new forms of art, and new ways to think about existence. But not every world was peaceful. Beyond the regions of harmony lay vast stretches of space shaped by conflict, scarcity, and fear. These were places where civilizations had failed their cosmic tests, or where they had never been offered one at all. Warlike species fought over resources. Entire planets bore the scars of ancient battles. Some worlds were little more than drifting ruins. Humanity was forced to confront the darker side of the universe. On one such world, the human explorers encountered a species that had nearly destroyed itself through endless war. Their skies were thick with pollution. Their cities were built from the remains of old weapons. They looked upon humanity not with curiosity, but with suspicion and hunger. The humans did not arrive with guns. They arrived with open hands. Using the Anunnaki principles of shared consciousness, they allowed the wounded minds of this species to feel something they had long forgotten: connection. Memories of peace, of beauty, of life before destruction flowed into them. It was not easy. Some resisted violently, others broke down in grief, but slowly a seed was planted. Humanity was not there to conquer, we were there to heal. This was the true test of our evolution. Could we face fear and violence without becoming what we feared? Could we bring compassion into places shaped by cruelty? With every encounter, humanity learned more about what it meant to carry the legacy of Earth into the stars. Back on Earth, the world continued to change. As knowledge from the galaxy flowed back, new philosophies, new sciences, and new cultures emerged. Humanity began to see itself not as a single story, but as part of a vast cosmic narrative. The Anunnaki watched all of this with a mixture of pride and humility. They had created humanity, yes, but now humanity was teaching them something in return. We were teaching them about emotion, about the power of hope, about the beauty of imperfection. Even the ancient, logical minds of the Anunnaki began to shift, influenced by the human capacity to feel deeply and dream boldly. The galaxy was not just being explored, it was being transformed. And yet, beyond the growing network of peaceful worlds, a great shadow stirred. There were forces in the universe older than the Anunnaki, ancient intelligences that had never faced a cosmic test because they did not believe in growth or balance. They believed only in consumption. These beings, known in the deepest Anunnaki archives as the Void Architects, had once devoured entire regions of space. They fed on energy, on consciousness, on life itself. Long ago, they had been driven back into the dark between galaxies. But the awakening of humanity, the activation of ancient Anunnaki technology, and the growing network of connected worlds had sent ripples through the fabric of the cosmos. The Void Architects had noticed. They were waking. Protect the fragile light of life in the universe. As the first tremors of the Void Architects' awakening rippled through the cosmic web, even the Anunnaki felt a deep and ancient unease. These were not simply hostile civilizations or aggressive species. The Void Architects were something far older, far more alien. They were born in the earliest epochs of the universe, when stars were still young and the laws of physics were still settling into their present forms. They were not evil in the way humans understand evil. They were empty. The Void Architects did not seek power, territory, or conquest. They sought only one thing: to consume complexity. They fed on consciousness, on the intricate patterns created by life, reducing them into silent, featureless energy. To them, a living galaxy was an aberration, a kind of noise that needed to be smoothed into perfect stillness. Long ago, the Anunnaki and several other ancient star civilizations had barely managed to push them back. Entire regions of space had been sacrificed to contain them. Whole worlds had gone dark, their histories erased as if they had never existed. The memory of that war was etched deep into the Anunnaki archives, and now those memories were becoming relevant again. The awakening of Earth, the activation of Anunnaki technology, and the rapid expansion of human-led exploration had created a powerful signal in the cosmic field. A signal of rising complexity, of growing awareness, of life pushing outward into the universe. To the Void Architects, this was like a feast calling out across the dark. Humanity did not sense this threat at first. We were still lost in wonder, discovering new worlds and meeting new beings. But the Anunnaki knew that the time for quiet growth was ending. They began to prepare, not for war, but for defense. The Anunnaki revealed to humanity a deeper layer of their technology, one that had been sealed away even during the first days of contact. These were not weapons in the traditional sense. They were systems designed to protect life by stabilizing the fabric of reality itself. The Void Architects could only feed where space and consciousness were unstable. They slipped through cracks in the cosmic structure, emerging where fear, chaos, and imbalance had weakened the natural order. To stop them, the galaxy would have to become more coherent, more aligned. This was something humanity was uniquely suited to help with, because humans, more than any species the Anunnaki had ever encountered, were sensitive to emotional and energetic states. We felt imbalance instinctively. We responded to suffering. We sought harmony even when we failed to achieve it. The Anunnaki realized that humanity could act as a kind of cosmic stabilizer, a living network of consciousness capable of reinforcing the fragile places in the universe. But this would require something unprecedented. Humanity would have to open its mind not just to the Anunnaki, but to the entire galactic community. And so, a great gathering was called. Across countless worlds, ships of every shape and size began to move. They traveled through shimmering corridors of space, guided by ancient navigation fields and newly awakened human intuition. They converged on a neutral region of space, a vast, luminous expanse where no single civilization held power. When humanity arrived, we were stunned. Beings of light, of crystal, of living plasma, of forms that could not be easily described filled the gathering space. Some were gentle and curious. Others were wary, scarred by long histories of conflict. All of them had heard the signal of Earth's awakening, and now they had come to see what it meant. The Anunnaki stood among them, no longer as distant gods but as respected elders, and beside them stood humans, still young, still uncertain, but filled with a strange, powerful potential. The purpose of the gathering was simple: to decide whether the galaxy would stand together or fall apart alone. The Void Architects were not something that any one civilization could face. They thrived on division, on fear, on isolation. If the galaxy fractured, they would pick it apart piece by piece. But if the galaxy could unite, then even something as ancient and hungry as the Void Architects might be held at bay. Humanity spoke, not with speeches or politics, but with shared experience. Through the Anunnaki Consciousness Network, humans shared memories of Earth, of standing on a small blue planet looking up at the stars, of fear and wonder, of mistakes and hope. Of the long, painful, beautiful journey that had brought us to this moment. Other species felt it. They felt the weight of human emotion, the raw honesty of a species that had struggled and still dared to dream. Many had forgotten what that felt like. Slowly a decision formed. The galaxy would try, not to dominate the Void Architects, but to deny them their food. Together, the civilizations began building a new kind of network, not of machines alone, but of minds and hearts. Worlds agreed to share energy, knowledge, and support. Places of great suffering were healed. Regions of space that had been torn by war were stabilized. Humanity became a vital part of this effort, acting as emotional anchors, helping other species reconnect with empathy and creativity. The Void Architects, sensing their feast slipping away, began to move. Darkness crept into distant star systems. Entire regions of space grew cold and silent. The first skirmishes began not with explosions, but with waves of entropy that drained the life from everything they touched. Humanity and the Anunnaki stood side by side as the galaxy faced its greatest challenge, and in that moment the true legacy of Earth was revealed. We were not just explorers, we were guardians of the fragile light of life, the deepest fears within itself. As the first waves of Void Architect influence washed through the outer regions of the galaxy, humanity began to understand something that no amount of exploration had prepared us for. The universe was not just a place of wonder and beauty, it was also a place of profound danger, not the kind of danger that could be solved with weapons or shields, but the kind that reached into the very essence of what it meant to be alive. The Void Architects did not attack in fleets, they did not announce themselves. They arrived as silence. Entire star systems would simply go quiet. Communication would fade. Energy fields would collapse. Where once there had been vibrant worlds, there would be only cold, empty space. Life was not destroyed in the usual sense. It was erased, its complexity smoothed into nothingness. The Anunnaki had warned that this was how they worked, but seeing it through human eyes was something else entirely. Crews aboard human ships watched in horror as distant suns dimmed and disappeared, their light swallowed by an invisible force. Fear spread quickly, not just among humans but among all the species that had gathered in this fragile alliance. Old memories of lost worlds, of ancient defeats began to resurface. Some civilizations questioned whether it was worth fighting at all. Others considered retreating to hidden corners of space, hoping to survive unnoticed. The Void Architects thrived on this doubt. Every moment of fear, every thought of isolation, created small fractures in the cosmic network the Alliance was trying to build. Through these cracks, the Void Architects could slip closer, feeding on the growing uncertainty. Humanity felt this tension deeply. We had faced fear many times on Earth, war, disaster, extinction, but this was different. This was a threat to everything we had just begun to become. The stars we had only just started to explore were now in danger of going dark forever. Some humans wanted to fight back with force. They pushed for the creation of powerful weapons, hoping to strike at the Void Architects directly. Others wanted to withdraw, to protect Earth and let the rest of the galaxy fend for itself. These debates echoed through the human collective consciousness, creating the very imbalance the Void Architects sought. The Anunnaki watched carefully. They knew that this moment would define not just the fate of the galaxy, but the true nature of humanity. It was Enki's legacy that now came into focus. He had believed that humans could grow beyond fear, beyond the need to dominate or hide. He had believed that we could choose connection even when everything inside us screamed to run, and now that belief was being tested. In a quiet moment, as darkness spread through a distant region of space, a group of humans did something unexpected. They did not try to attack the Void Architects, they reached out. Using the shared consciousness network, they projected feelings of empathy, curiosity, and even sorrow into the void. They tried to understand what these ancient beings were, what they wanted, and why they consumed. The Anunnaki were stunned. No species had ever tried to communicate with the Void Architects. They were considered beyond understanding, beyond reason. But humans, driven by their strange emotional depth, were willing to try. What they found was not what anyone expected. The Void Architects were not simply empty. They were wounded. They were remnants of an ancient form of life that had lost its ability to experience complexity. Long ago, they had been something else, something capable of feeling and connection. But over vast stretches of time, they had decayed into something that could only survive by consuming the complexity of others. They were not evil. They were starving. This realization shook the Alliance. If the Void Architects were not malicious but broken, then perhaps there was another way to stop them. Not through destruction, but through healing. The idea seemed impossible. How do you heal something that feeds on the very thing you are trying to protect? And yet humanity, with its deep understanding of suffering and loss, felt a spark of possibility. We had healed ourselves from countless wounds. Perhaps in some way we could help heal them too. In the next part of our story, we will explore this daring attempt to transform an ancient cosmic threat and what it reveals about the true power of compassion in the universe. And that is where we will pause for now. We have reached a powerful turning point in the story. Humanity, the Anunnaki, and the galaxy have just discovered that the Void Architects are not merely destroyers. They are wounded, starving remnants of something that once knew connection. The first of the Void Architects took that step in silence. There was no explosion, no flash of light, no grand announcement. There was only a slow, almost trembling shift in the dark fabric of space where the ancient entity had lingered. Its vast, formless presence began to condense, drawing inward as if it were remembering how to be something instead of nothing. Humanity felt it, across Earth and across the many worlds that had joined the galactic network. A soft wave of emotion spread. It felt like a deep breath after a very long time underwater. Something that had been suffocating the universe was loosening its grip. The Void Architect was no longer feeding, it was feeling. Fragments of its lost identity surfaced. It sensed the echoes of what it had once been, a being of curiosity, of wonder, of connection. For the first time in ages beyond counting, it was not alone inside its own vast consciousness. The gentle, fragile emotions sent by humanity gave it something it had not known how to find on its own. Meaning, other Void Architects felt the change. Some recoiled, clinging to their endless hunger. They feared this strange new sensation, this vulnerability that came with awareness. But others, drawn by the same faint echo of their ancient selves, hesitated. The advance of the darkness slowed. In some regions, it stopped entirely. The Anunnaki watched this with awe. They had fought the Void Architects for so long that they had never imagined this outcome. And now it was humanity, their creation, that was showing the galaxy a different way forward. The first transformed void architect continued to stabilize, its energy forming patterns that were no longer chaotic but intricate and alive. It began to communicate not in words but in impressions and feelings. It did not want to destroy anymore. It wanted to remember. This changed everything. A new alliance began to form, not just between humanity and the Anunnaki, but between life and what had once been the greatest threat to life. Slowly, carefully, the process of healing spread. Not all of the void architects could be saved, but enough began to change that the cosmic balance tipped away from annihilation. The galaxy did not fall into darkness, it opened into light. Humanity stood at the center of this transformation, not because we were the strongest or the most advanced, but because we were the ones who understood suffering and hope at the same time. We had learned on our small blue planet that even the deepest wounds could heal when met with compassion. And so a new era began. An era where Earth was no longer a forgotten outpost of an ancient experiment, but a beacon of emotional intelligence in a vast and complex universe. An era where the Anunnaki walked beside us as partners, and where even the most broken forms of life were given a chance to rediscover what it meant to exist. The stars no longer felt distant, they felt like home. And that is the true legacy of the Anunnaki and humanity together, not domination, not fear, but the courage to reach out, even into the deepest darkness, and say, "You are not alone. Thank you for staying with me through this incredible journey." If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to subscribe, leave a comment, and let me know where you are watching from in the world. Your support helps keep these stories alive, and I would love to hear from you.